past year.
Oh. Me too. My retirement date is October.
Mine
Retired
I know
from,
yours did.
Mine was August 7th last year.
oh, for the social security stuff?
Oh, social security's not yet.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Good evening, everybody, or good morning.
Not evening.
Yeah. Old habits die hard. Welcome to the special meeting of the governing body for July 27th, 2019. Today's topic is basically wrapping up the new budget. So following the Pledge of Allegiance, I will entertain a motion for approval of today's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve our agenda.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Thank you, council. Next item up is public comment. Anybody signed up? Is anybody not signed up wants to talk? Mr. McGill? All right. Following that, we'll move on to the action items then. First one up is discussion, consideration, action on adoption of Resolution 2019-14, adopting the 2019 year-end budget adjustments. Juan, you want to take us through this?
Yes, good morning, Mayor Council. So what you have before you, some budget adjustments. Just so you guys are aware, some of these adjustments are based off of our year-to-date actual. Others are based off of DFA's requirements, and I'll explain some of those as we get through here. On the revenue side, these are all year-to-date actuals. One to keep note of is the property tax, and this is one where we actually did bring in the $433,000 in property tax, but you'll see it come up again as a transfer from the general fund. The reason that's there, the way we put it on our books is we put all of the property tax to the road department, to the road fund. The way DFA with their new LGBMS reporting system, it doesn't give us that option to do it. So the way we have to do it is we have to record everything in the general fund and then show it as a transfer out to the road department. So that's why you'll see it in here twice on that property tax, or that amount twice, and it's just to reflect that accurately. But all the other revenues are all based off of year-to-date actual. Getting to the general fund expenditures, governing body, that was just the health insurance that was picked up this past year. Finance and administration, so this is a combination of DFA requirements and a little bit of overages. We had a little bit of overages on our non-capital furniture and equipment. We had a computer go down right at the end of the fiscal year. Actually, it was Roger's computer, so we had to purchase another one, and we had to get another switch. So those were the big ones. But of that, almost 152,000 was our contracts for our GRT. So every month we have them intercepted out of our GRT, and this is just reflecting this in our budget, which we didn't account for last year. So what we'll probably do this year was we didn't do that again this year. We're going to be converting our financial system from version 8 to version 9. Once we do that, we're going to walk through all the line items, and then we'll probably bring some budget adjustments back just to start putting in these contracts that are in there. DFA told us, in the past, when we were on the manual reporting system, that wasn't required. With the new one, it is required. So now that's all it is. The 151,000 was just the contract intercepts that go to like our NMFA loans, everything that's directly intercepted. Santa Fe County Fire Protection. This one is just the increment that we have with the GRT increment that we provide to Santa Fe County, since we brought in more revenue this year, we just have to increase what we paid out to them. Animal control, so this one, we actually had this in our original budget, but this past year was the first year with that LGMS reporting, and our crosswalk, for whatever reason, did not bring over the salaries line item, the wages line item. So when I talked to the DFA analyst, she just said, well, just put it back in, just so it reflects, because the budget we approved, it wasn't in there, so they want to see this just as a budget adjustment. So that's what that one is. Lodgers tax fund, once again, this was our first full year of the lodgers tax, so we brought in $45,981, so that fund is doing quite well. On the expenditure side, the increase, so our very first lodgers tax fund award that we gave out, we didn't receive the invoice until this fiscal year, so that's why we had planned for $20,000. That's why it's at $23,000. It was just the award from the previous year that crossed over. Animal shelter fund, the revenue and the expenditures, we've never put in, we've never put in a budgeted amount for this one, just because we don't know what we're going to bring in or spend from there. So I think if you recall last year, I think we did the same thing. We just did, once we realized what we actually brought in year to date, we just put that in. Capital projects fund, the GRT infrastructure, once again, we just saw more revenue for that line item. The state distributions, this would be our reimbursements that we received primarily from NMED, and also we believe we received one for the first MAP fund for Church Street for design. Capital fund, projects fund expenditures. This is once again the sewer line expenditures that we put in. Wastewater fund revenue. Once again, we saw more revenue coming in with that environmental increment. And the utility service, we had a couple customers connect, throughout the year, so that's why the increase in revenue. On the expenditures, the majority of this expenditure is, or roughly $36,000 of it was our truck that we ordered. If you recall, we actually ordered that in fiscal year 18, around January, February timeframe, and we actually didn't receive the truck until January, February of this year. So that's just, I believe $28,000 was the truck, and then we had the upfit to put the lights and all the safety equipment on there, and then just to put the town decals and graphics on it. Cell tower escrow fund, for both of these ones, it's once again, we just kind of put year-to-date actual, because we never know what we're going to get. So we had one come in and put the deposit down, and then we had several of them request the reimbursement of their escrow accounts. Transfers, so general fund transfers out, total of $26,369. So on the municipal streets, here's where you'll see that property tax number show up again. And then wastewater, and this will just cover the difference from basically the truck that was primarily in there. We did have a little bit of overage on the personnel side, but this was that year where we had half of the year was, or a little over half the year was the professional service, and then bringing in the new employee. And so with these, this should zero out our budget and not have us exceed any fund balance with DFA.
Council have any questions for Mr. Torres? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-14, adopting the 2019 year-end budget adjustments.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the resolution number 2019-14, a budget resolution authorizing budget adjustments. Do it on a roll call vote. Start down there. Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abrams.
Aye.
Councilor Hawley.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Next item, discussion, consideration, action on adoption of Resolution 2019-15, adopting the 2019 fourth quarter financial report. Mr. Torres.
Mayor, Council, what you have before you is a resolution stating that you've received the fourth quarter report and you approve it. It's one of the requirements of DFA. There was one thing I did want to provide more information, bring the actual report in, but for whatever reason, LGBMS is not reporting any budget adjustments that we've done. So it's not reflecting that on the budget. So I'll actually bring that forth at another date. I've got to call in the analyst to try and fix it, but that's at DOIT to try and get that fixed for us. But these numbers, these are the numbers that are accurate. So, you know, once again, if you recall our June financial report, you know, we ended the year with $2.8 million. There's roughly about $100 difference between the two. There's some rounding differences that our quarterly report doesn't match with our financial system, but you know, for the most part, we are.
So this is changes up in their department that's causing all these screw-ups?
So yeah, the way it works is, I think a few years back, the state wanted all municipalities and county governments to switch our line items over to match their line items exactly. There was a big uproar. We're saying, you know, are you guys going to pay for this conversion cost? So their solution was to come up with this LGBMS reporting system. And so there's a crosswalk from our financial system over to their financial system. So we take all of our line items and say, it's going to go to this line item, it's going to go to this line item. And, you know, for the most part, it's working better than we expected, but there are still bugs and glitches in there. And like I said, the reporting, it's easier to report. You know, I think once we get all the bugs worked out and our line items crossed over, everything's going great. You know, it should be as simple, just a click of a button from our financial system to create the spreadsheet and get over there. We're not quite there yet, so you know, hopefully we'll get there. But that's what's causing the little glitches and differences. I mean, you know, our system, we show, like the good example, the animal control salaries. We show that in our system. It's not shown in their system. You know, there's just little differences that come in. Like, well, we've noticed, like, when we're sitting there picking the line items, you know, like their object code is like, I don't know, 47260, and the one that we have on our crosswalk was 47261. So we're having to go in and just kind of look at each individual line item and make sure it matches up. And unfortunately, we're going to have to do that all over again, because Tuesday we're switching our Encode version from version 8 to version 9, and there's going to be a whole new crosswalk with that one, with our chart of accounts. So we'll get that up and running and work the bugs out with DFA on that version as well.
But it's nothing, Jesus, nothing of our equipment or anything that's screwed.
No. And I think since this is the first year of full reporting on LGBMS, you know, the first complete year from quarterly reports to budget and everything, everyone's getting bugs worked out, you know. A few municipalities, they've kind of had the same thing. I've seen some emails go back and forth to our DFA analysts, kind of reflecting the same issues I'm having, so.
Council have any questions for Mr. Torres on this one?
I do, Mayor. So just to clarify, this adjustments column, you're saying normally would have shown our bars for the year, but it's not? Is that what you're saying?
No, so this one right here, so this is actually our actual cash balances, and the adjustments come in. I mean, the only difference between the beginning and ending is the reserve requirement that it pulls out on this one. So this is our actual balances, and this is what's going to be reported as our beginning balances when we submit our final. The bars are not being reflected at all on LGBMS right now, and those aren't reflected on the recap page. This is just our actual activity for the year.
Okay. And so what is the report missing?
I didn't print up the sheet that shows it's called the summary sheet, which shows all the line items, because the bars are not showing the adjustments.
Okay. Yeah, for last year.
Right.
But this one is showing the proper ending balances,
Correct.
right? And then it does show the transfers I noticed on here, you know, general fund, and this is essentially where general fund monies go into streets and wastewater. Now, does that, I know you were saying the GRT has to be reported in general fund first?
Right, so that
is this-
433,717, so that's actually showing in there, because that actually did happen, and we did put that transfer in. Where that budget adjustment resolution came in was just to show the actual, on the adjustment side, to show that bar.
Okay. So my question on the transfers column then is this how much we supplemented those funds with general fund monies?
Yes, well, I guess we supplemented with respect to municipal street, because that was all the property tax. The 40,000, that's broken out into two 20,000s. We had the capital replacement fund, which we put 20,000 a year into, and then we also have the terminal leave fund, which we put 20,000 a year into as well, just to get that, so that balance on the terminal leave is now up to 60,000. And that one, we set that one up to handle any employees that leave that would impact that. So the main subsidy from general fund was the wastewater.
Okay, so the streets was covered by GRT is what I was wondering.
Right, well, no, yeah, so the streets, that 433,717.26, that is all property tax.
Okay. Okay. And so just the wastewater. Well, it seems to be an improvement from the past. I mean, it seemed to me in looking at the financials previously that we had larger subsidies.
We did, but and also keep in mind, we changed, or I should say I changed how we were actually doing it, because we would have, we had it set up in the past as we had different, every department was its own fund. And so we converted everything back. I think all the general fund items should be in general fund. So we brought library, police, we brought all of them back into being departments of the general fund versus their own individual fund. And so I think that's also where, if you recall in the past, we had much larger transfers. It was transferring to those funds.
And then as far as cash balance or fund balance that this is showing, like you said earlier, it's 2.8, almost 2.9 million, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then some reserves that they have there, so 2.55. How does that compare to the past?
Well, when I first started, I believe we were at about 1.3, so we're slowly building fund balance up across the board. I think some of the funds, like some of the projects that we've had on the books that would have actually lowered our fund balance, like our capital projects fund, are taking longer than expected. So like we had the bridge project, which hopefully we'll see go through this year. But we didn't have that match planned to go out. So, I mean, there's a couple projects that we've had on our radar that haven't gone through yet. So capital projects fund being the main one is kind of inflated, and we hope those projects will go through this current fiscal year.
So there's a little bit of unbalanced cash balance for those that will be expended this next year?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So it looks like, as far as fund balance and cash balance is, that it's not decreasing.
Correct.
Yeah. And then remind me, is the investments amount of 256,000, is that LGIP?
No, that is just, those are just CDs. We have
CDs,
two, we have
okay.
two CDs. We have one with Wells Fargo and one with Bank of the West.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a good report because it shows us, really big picture what's happening with our balances and what we ended up with for the year. So it's good.
One question about the CDs. That 1/12 reserve that we have to hold back, did we increase that this year?
We did increase the reserve requirement, but we didn't increase the amount into the CDs.
We may want to do that at some point very soon,
Okay.
just to ensure that we have the 1/12. I know I've pretty much asked every year, so I've asked again. The other question is, when we exceed the 225,000 insured amount in each bank, we may need a third bank.
So what we're doing right now is every time we're pulling from Wells Fargo, anything excess interest-wise, and then we're transferring that one over to the Bank of the West one. So I think once that one hits the maximum, we'll definitely open another one.
Then they provide pledged collateral too if you go over that
Correct.
amount. Yeah, so we're covered in that way.
Don't trust them.
I know. And it's only 50%.
I know.
So, yeah.
I don't have any more questions. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Resolution 2019-15, adopting the 2019 fourth quarter financial report.
No second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve adoption of the budget resolution number 2019-15, a budget resolution approving the fourth quarter financial report for fiscal year 2018-2019. Start down there, Counselor Jaramillo,
Aye.
Counselor Abrams,
Aye.
Counselor Holly,
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Council. The next one then is discussion, consideration, action on adoption of Resolution 2019-16, adopting the fiscal year 20 final budget. Mr. Torres?
Yes, Mayor, Council. So what you have before you on this one, it's essentially everything we talked about the other night. So it has the interim budget minus or with some additional changes to it, but nothing major. You'll see I kind of on your packets, I tried to highlight some of the line items. So and like we were just discussing on the capital improvements, we've got a transfer out of $375,000. So that transfer out, those are our actual capital projects that we have going. So that'll include our match for Church Street. That'll include our match for Horton Road plus the additional funding we're going to put into it. That includes our match for the pedestrian bridge crossing, for the finish up design and construction. So that is all of our match requirements for the year. On the general fund, you'll notice, I believe, and I don't recall exactly the exact number, we're about 5,000 deficit spending on the interim budget. Now we're about 55,000. So where that comes in is on finance administration. Let's see, what is it for you guys? On page 6 of your packet, we have the PPA, and this was our agreement with Aspire Hotels for that payment, and that payment actually came out this fiscal year. So it's a payment we've known about for about 2 years now, and we were just waiting for the reimbursement request to come in. So
That one took forever to get here.
with respect to the PPA agreement now, we're going to try and have Mr. McCall come in at the next council meeting to give his report, which is required of the PPA, so we can let us know how many employees he's hired from the area and all the other agreement requirements. Let's see, general fund transfers. So this one is, you'll see an addition here of $23,793 being transferred into the general fund. So you'll see that number again on the maintenance side, and that's $23,793 that we just purchased the tractor, the lawnmower, the vehicles for. And you'll also see where that transfer is coming from is on our capital replacement fund, where we put the $20,000 in. So that's actually coming out of that fund we had set up to fund it. So that's not an additional burden, so to speak, on the general fund. It's just out of that fund balance. So those are the main impacts to general fund. Everything else, the other additions to it are in the capital projects. And once again, that's just putting in the actual project amounts, the co-op. So this one does also have the full amount required to pave Horton Road, South Horton Road. And as soon as this budget's approved, we'll get the request over to Albuquerque Asphalt and get that ball rolling, and actually get a firm date that we can give the residents off of the areas that live off of there, give them a firm date of here's when we're going to be coming through for paving.
Good. Do you have a question?
I did.
Abraham, you
I
had
had
a question?
I had a comment, but never mind. It was just about the PPA and the amount that we get for lodger's tax almost offsets itself, doesn't it? I
It's-
mean, yeah.
Pretty close. I mean, and then that hotel is full just about all the time. So it's, I mean, like I said, lodger's tax, we're bringing in a lot more than we anticipated originally. And in speaking with Mr. McCall, people are staying at this hotel over his hotel in Moriarty. He said they'll pay the extra for the newer facility versus the one in Moriarty. So, I mean, it's doing great.
Okay. That was just a comment.
Do they tell him that? I mean, how does he know that?
He's asked them.
Yeah.
And he's actually filled, I mean, from what he's told me, and I'm sure he'll tell us at the report, when he brings the report in, he's filled up over here. And
Yeah, I see
tried,
he's
and he tries
driving.
sending them down over there, and they don't want to stay down there. They'll either go back
Oh,
into
no, don't make
Albuquerque,
me
is what he
go.
was saying, versus, so I don't know. It's kind of
Figured he'd
strange.
do good. Well, I guess it's also when you do them reservations or whatever now online, it comes up as the classier one. It's that Comfort Inn is higher upgrade than whatever he's got down there now. They downgraded him down there, so. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion on this one.
I did have some comments. I was just comparing some things from our budget workshop, and I noticed everything is about the same. I don't know that we really changed too much from what we had there, what we talked about at the workshop. But in going through my notes, I had a note on animal control that health insurance cost increased 5%. And I think that in our discussion there, that was about the City of Albuquerque plan, right? And of course, that would be for, the whole town, not just animal control. But I think that's where the discussion came up. And then I did have a question from a community member as far as what our benefits are, as far as paying for coverage for employees and the family. And I didn't know the details and the percentage, and I didn't know the history of what council had decided on that. So I was hoping you could fill me in, and then hopefully that'll answer her question as well.
So, Mayor Council, I don't recall exactly on each tier, on each level, what the amounts are. Amelia, Carla, I don't know if you guys recall, but the town has pledged 80% of whatever those costs are per employee. So, and it just ranges from single all the way up to family, and there's different rates on each one. Does the city, do we have, is that on the website? Do we know?
No, but we have a handbook.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll grab you a handbook real quick, which actually shows the different amounts.
Okay. Do you guys know the history of that, of how you decided the amount that would be covered?
No, I don't. Whatever they had going when we got in here, the only change we switched to that, well, we didn't switch to it, but Presbyterian. They've had a couple little changes in there, yeah.
And then I was kind of curious
The vision.
how
thing,
that
yeah.
compares to other municipalities' benefits.
My recollection of it is that it's been 80% for quite a long time. And 80%, in my experience, both in the private sector and public, 80% is very generous.
Right,
Yeah, she gave us that one.
right.
Mayor Council, so most municipalities are either in the range between 60 to 90% coverage. I think City of Albuquerque does 90% for their employees,
For the family as well?
for all plans.
So the city of Albuquerque's 90%?
I believe that was that last I knew it was 90%. I'm not sure what they're at now. When I was at Bernalillo, it was 80% as well. I think when talking with Mountain Air, they were saying they were 60%, and it just varies, but most of them are 60 to 90 was the kind of the range.
Mm-hmm. And I have noticed that municipalities, in picking up the para portions, the employee portion of para, and some of the other benefits, that they're much more generous than the state or the school districts, of course. And so it's kind of nice in one way because then we can attract talent here. I don't know, Chief, is that a consideration for people when they come from the county or not really?
It has been a consideration because recently the county picked up a larger portion.
Okay.
And that's one of the first questions asked during the interviews. Whenever we open it to them to ask us questions, they're talking about para benefits, things like that. We have a decent benefits package. It's pretty good because we go off with Albuquerque.
Yeah.
We manage plans off Albuquerque, so they're one of the top plans in the state, but there's always that other agency that has just a little better in one category or another. So right now,
In a really quick update, City of Albuquerque is taking over managing their own plan for the first time this year. It's always been managed by Presbyterian, so this is kind of a transition year for them. They have 16 municipalities in their plan, and they've now this year become a self-managed plan. They're still with Presbyterian, it's just not Presbyterian managing it. Yeah, that's what they're hoping.
So hopefully there's some cost savings there.
And Counselor, just for your information, so like the town, we pick up 20% para on all of our general employees, and our police department, we pick up 60% of their para.
All right, that's what I needed to know. Then let's see if I had anything else marked here. In looking back at planning and zoning and our recent discussions about lean and cleans and, cleaning up the town, I'm showing that we had a $20,000 increase.
What page are you on?
Well, on this one, it's 13,
Page
but it's,
Page 13.
yeah. So that does provide some, right? I mean,
Correct.
we didn't increase it to the 52 or the 69, but we still have that 20 there for her to use.
Correct.
And then, like we talked about at the last meeting, if during the year our revenues come in better, we can always do a bar. So I think we're good with that. I don't know, Counselor Abraham, if you have any other concerns.
No, last time she said she didn't need more money, so I'm good.
And then I did have on municipal streets a note that under maintenance, we were gonna add 103,000 for Horton. And I wasn't sure where we ended up with that. It was under
Which page?
maintenance and grounds on page 24.
Oh.
Municipal streets.
Mayor, Council, so the maintenance portion, or the part for Horton Road, can't speak, is out of capital projects.
Okay.
So that was part of that transfer, and the way we have it set up is a little strange, and I want to fix that, but we've got the capital projects fund, and we have the capital improvements. The capital improvements is where we put the revenue coming in, and that's where that transfer coming out, that $375,000. And the capital projects fund is where the actual construction, so that's where we have the funding for that.
Okay, instead of the street fund, so we didn't have to put it there.
Correct.
Okay. And then I think my last comment was just on wastewater. From the budget workshop, we talked about getting an inspection camera. This is page 33 for looking for any leaks or things like that. And I think that that's still in our final budget, right? One is wastewater on the second page of wastewater, 10,000 for furniture and equipment.
Correct, it is still
We
in
get
there.
it there still? Okay. All right, yeah, that's a good thing. Okay. I'm good.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2019-16, adopting the Town of Edgewood final budget for fiscal year 2019 to 2020.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution number 2019-16, a resolution adopting the Town of Edgewood final budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. Start in the middle there, Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Harmiel.
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Have a budget.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, council.